Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Gene Chan, hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider 6 items. Order number 205111, to consider an appeal for the fine issued in relationship to 373 6th Avenue. Order number 205112, to consider an appeal for fine issued in relationship to 1351 16th Avenue. Order 205113, to consider an appeal for fine issued in relationship to 2696 17th Avenue. Order 205114, to consider an appeal for a fine issued in relationship to 450 Los Palmos Drive. Order number 205115, to consider an appeal for a fine issued in relationship to 601 44th Avenue. And order number 205116, to consider an appeal for a fine issued in relationship to 955 Kirkham Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make a determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determination. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows for the 6 cases. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner to speak. Then any member of the public that would like to comment. Then the department, if the department would like to address any comments. Then the property owner again, if the person has any rebuttal. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you're a member of the public who wants to speak, please wait for me to call for public comments. Then use Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on a computer to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you are dialing in on your phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, we will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. Order number 205111 at 373 6th Avenue. May I please have the department start this off?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Hi, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'm the acting urban forester and certified arborist. Before I get into the individual cases, we have a little bit of information we like to give out before the fine hearings. It mostly just talks about some of our code and some of our information. Again, the city issues fines for destruction of trees because it is in the Public Works Code and the Urban Forestry Ordinance. It's unlawful for any person to intentionally, maliciously, or through gross negligence injure or destroy a tree. Tree removal, basically, in order to remove any tree within the public right of way or any significant trees, you must obtain a tree removal permit. I don't think this is relevant to today's hearing, but we often issue fines for construction projects for failure to protect trees during construction. In short, under section 802, an injury to a tree shall mean any act which harms or damages a tree, including but not limited to impact, cutting, carving, painting, transplanting, or knocking over, and also pruning, which in and of itself will kill or cause a tree to decline, or severing of all or part of a tree. Some best management practices when pruning trees, we try to tell people do not remove more than 25% of a tree's canopy within 1 year, and do not cut back to a branch that is less than 1/3 or 1/2 the size of the main branch. The most common illegal practice is topping trees, where someone removes the majority of a tree's canopy and indiscriminately cuts across the top, does not cut back to a proper branch. They just kind of indiscriminately cut the trunks and the scaffold branches. This often produces weakly attached and rapid new growth, and the tree has to then use all of its energy to produce new leaves. And when it uses all of its energy to produce new leaves, it doesn't have as many resources to fend itself off from disease. This is an example of a tree that died after it was topped. Also, topping often results in trees forming very poor structure, which requires more maintenance in the future, and limbs are prone to failure. Here's a photo of a tree where it was topped in the past, and then pathogens and fungus were able to colonize the tree trunk and form columns of decay. Some people, this slide is to show that pollarding and topping is not the same thing. Pollarding is a type of pruning that must be started with the tree is young. It's kind of, maybe you've seen the trees in front of City Hall. It can only be performed on very specific trees, and it's not something you can do to a mature tree. This slide is about power lines. Many people cut their trees for fear of them touching power lines. There's many utility lines in the city that trees are allowed to touch, and it is safe. And for the lines that trees cannot touch, PG&E is actively managing those on an annual basis. A little bit of info of Street Tree SF. Starting in 2017, the city assumed maintenance of all sidewalk trees. And to date, we've approximately pruned, I believe this number is a little off right now, but at least 1/4 of the trees. Our goal starting in 2017 is to be able to prune every block within 5 years. And we're making our way along that progress. And this is just a map of some of the areas in blue are the areas we've completed, and it's increased since this slide was last made. And the areas in green are the currently active areas. And we're trying to do as much outreach as possible. We don't want homeowners pruning trees themselves, and we only want them hiring reputable tree companies. Homeowners can protect themselves by hiring tree companies that employ certified arborists, so they don't hire a landscape company or just their gardener to prune trees, because they often prune them incorrectly. Okay, that is all for that. And now we'll get into the first hearing item, 373 6th Avenue. Here at the address, there's 2 purple leaf plum trees. This is a photo of the trees before they were pruned. Judging from the canopy, they appear to be relatively healthy with pretty good structure. This is the after photo of the tree where they were all topped. About 100% of the canopy was removed, and on the photo on the right you can see some branch tearing. And again, the tree was indiscriminately cut to random points along the trunk and not pruned back to proper branch unions. Here's just some, and this photo is from June 2020. And again, this is the type of pruning where now the tree is going to have to use a lot of its resources to resprout, and the large wounds will be a good introduction point for disease. So you're effectively, reducing the lifespan of this tree considerably because it will begin to decay. This particular owner had submitted a legal document to express their opinions of what happened, and they said they may or may not attend the hearing. So I just wanted to let that be known that we forwarded that to the hearing officer. But if they are here, they can speak. But that is all for the Bureau of Urban Forestry. Thanks.
Thank you. May I have the property owner or its representative comment on this item?
Yes, we have Walter Lynn. Go ahead, Mr. Lynn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, the property owner couldn't make it. He can only physically appear places, and he doesn't feel safe to appear anywhere. And that's in the paperwork. So, very briefly, he is apologetic of what has happened. He hired someone recommended by his maintenance person, his gardener. He had no intention of harming the trees. He believed that they were touching the power lines. He said that the power went out once or twice because he has overhanging power during the wintertime, and he wanted them trimmed. Some branches were also falling off in the wintertime. And regarding the photos that were just seen, he believed that the trees weren't fully, I guess the leaves weren't fully out at that time, and that he generally believes that he didn't harm or injure those trees to a severe extent, warranting a penalty. And he has submitted photos in the exhibits. Did you want me to put those on via screen share, or?
I don't think it's necessary. I have
Okay.
what you've submitted and the
Okay.
exhibits with me.
So he in Exhibit A, he submitted photos taken in November 10th. Exhibit B, he submitted photos taken on April 27th of 2021. And then Exhibit C, he submitted photos of the trees taken on June 16th of 2021. He believes, obviously he's not an expert. He doesn't represent that he knows he's an arborist or anything like that. He just believes that they are beautiful trees. They're growing. There's what he says a lush amount of leaves, and he believes they're healthy. And it would be a shame to rip them out and for $4,000. He believes that they're healthy and no penalty should be warranted. Obviously, that's his first argument, that he didn't injure them. His second argument would be that even if it were determined that he did hire someone that injured the trees, he didn't do so purposely or intentionally. He doesn't know English very well. He doesn't know the ordinance. He is the owner of the property, but he's very apologetic. He requests a reduction of the penalty. He received some letters, but he doesn't know how to read English, and he wanted to let you guys know that he's very sorry. He didn't mean to injure those trees, and that he doesn't think it would be cost effective to remove those trees. He believes they're beautiful and he loves them, and he doesn't want to receive a penalty for something he didn't feel like he did so intentionally and maliciously. And he forwards his
Thank you,
sincere
Mr.
apology.
Lynn. That is your time.
Okay.
Mr. Chan.
Thank you. Are there any public comments at this time? Seeing none so far, does the department have any comments they would like to add?
No comments at this time.
Okay. So I am going to close this item and move on to the next item. Order number 205112 for 1351 16th Avenue. Steve, may I have you start this one off?
Mhm. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, this is the fine for the illegal pruning of one tree at 1351 16th Avenue. This is a photo of the tree before the excessive pruning. It is a sweet shade tree. This is a pretty common growth habit, fairly narrow in shape and tall. I believe this slide is showing that I think that the homeowner had made multiple requests for the city to prune the tree via 311, but they never received a response in person from the Bureau, which is fairly common when we do not think the tree is in urgent need of pruning. We tend to close the service request stating that we will prune the tree when the block is scheduled for the city's standard maintenance. I mean, we try to share some of this information ahead of time when people submit the request, so they know, unless it's, an urgent safety hazard, we're likely not to provide maintenance off of our normal schedule. This is a photo of the tree after it was essentially cut in half, maybe a little bit, maybe reduced by 40%, and a large, the trunk was a large 6-inch cut was made on the trunk. It's just a very significant portion of canopy to be removed, along with creating a large wound in a critical portion of the trunk. Yes, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the property owner provide their comments? Would that be Mr. Jung?
Yes, that is Mr. Jung. I'm going to promote him to panelist because he wanted to share his screen. Okay, just a moment.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Jung, when you come in, remember to unmute yourself once again.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your screen.
Okay. So I should go ahead and say my piece?
Yes, you have
Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay, so here on the screen you can see the report I made twice in January of 2019. And this is what I said. Safety hazard to pedestrians and vehicles. We have an overgrown street tree that is over 30 feet tall. Large branches break off and fall from it during rain or windstorms. a neighbor has complained that a fallen branch damaged his wife's parked car. We are concerned that people might be injured by the falling branches if the tree is not radically trimmed. If the tree cannot be made safe by trimming, then it should be removed for safety reasons. Okay, so we submitted this once from 1351 and once again from 1353. It's a 2-unit property. And we filed this originally because the neighbor complained about the falling branch damaging their car. And we wanted to assure them that we were drawing attention to it, to the city's attention. According to the letter, it says that all the major branches were cut. So I submitted photos, and I wanted to say that the lower branches, as I said in my appeal letter, the 3 or 4 major lower branches were not pruned in this pruning. They were ripped off by vandals over the years, and then then all I did was trim back the shards so that to reduce the exposure. Okay, and that all happened before the city supposedly took over care for the trees. Now, I also showed in some of the photos typical damage in the neighborhood, like there was a flowering cherry tree right around the corner on Irving Street at 16th, where someone just went by and ripped all the branches off. Now there's only one branch left. Okay, and earlier I remembered reporting to the DPW that the whole bunch of cherry trees along that stretch between 16th and 17th Avenue, I believe it was vandalized. And I sent copies of that email yesterday, or this morning. I sent copies of that email to Charisse and Susan, and I don't know if they've had a chance to forward those or not. But at that time, that was in 2009, and I was already, I just wanted to show that I was concerned about the problem of vandalism, and that I had appreciated the city's attempt to take care of those trees. However, I was disappointed this time. I actually was a strong supporter of Proposition E, and I was hoping that the city would take over care of the trees. But when we needed them to remove this safety hazard or to correct it, nobody responded. Nobody even told me anything. If they, the gentleman said they check it out and then determined to close the case. Well, it seems like they should tell the complainant and inform me in this case what's going on. As far as I know, there was nothing going on, and the tree kept growing taller and taller. And if you look at the Google photograph that you showed in the before.
Excuse me, Mr. Jung.
Yes.
Your 3 minutes has expired, and I did forward those messages to the hearing officer. He does have everything that was issued.
Did you receive the ones that I sent this morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to say one more thing. If you look at that tree and you look carefully, you'll see that the branches and the excess growth on the south side is already towering over the first wire of the 7 overhead wires there, and it's leaning more and more, and the growth kept getting heavier and heavier on the south side. So it really was a safety hazard that had to be addressed, and I paid $520 to have someone trim it. I didn't know that it's not against the law to do that, but like I said in my appeal letter, I'm concerned about the health of the tree, but I'm also concerned about the safety hazard to the public, and as well as the health of the tree, because the tree has been toppled twice already in its life. It's come back each time. It's been a very resilient tree. The branches have been ripped off by vandals. like I showed you a picture of someone has taken a blowtorch and burned a hole in it, and yet the tree it grew like a weed. In fact, it kept growing too much to the point where it looked like it could be toppled. And I showed also there's a lot of traffic here with moving vans. There's a 10-unit apartment next door. They have constant traffic of large trucks here, and as I showed some of them in the pictures. And I'm sorry to run over my time. I'll give it back to you, and I guess I'll have time to comment further later, right?
Thank you, Mr. Jung. Is there any public comment at this time? Mr. Josh?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it seems that the appellant should probably ask for his money back from whoever did that, because that was not clearly not done by a certified arborist or anyone experienced in how to prune a tree. And as it sounds like everyone on the meeting is aware that in 2017, the responsibility for these street trees was transferred over to the city. So to the extent there's any concern about liability, that is squarely on the city's shoulders unless the property owner affirmatively opted out of that, which it sounds like he did not. In terms of how to report and how to track and find out what's going on, 311 is a pretty useful tool for that, something that I think has been in operation for a few years now. And it shows that you have submitted a request, and it shows the status of that request. So I would just close by saying this isn't just an illegal pruning job. This tree is basically dead. So in terms of what should be assessed here, it seems as if it should be more based on what the value of the tree would have been had it not been butchered like this, as opposed to just an illegal pruning. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any rebuttals from the department?
No.
I actually had a quick question.
Sure.
Steve, with the way that the tree has been cut at the trunk, is this tree going to survive, or?
You know, an inspector would have to go back to the tree and see how it's responding. It is a species that I have seen them topped before, and they have not died. They have resprouted. It just makes it a little bit more difficult to maintain now, because you don't want the resprouts to get super tall, because then they become a failure risk themselves. So it is now more of an issue of it's going to need more regular maintenance to kind of do a crown containment type pruning. But I couldn't make any judgment on this individual tree without doing an in-person inspection. But I would say it's likely that the tree could remain.
Okay, thank you. Given that there was no rebuttal from the department, I'm going to now close this item and move on to the next item. Order number 205113 at 2696 17th Avenue. Steve, would you please start this one off?
Yep. Hi, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. This is this slide is just stating that anyone would like to remove a street tree requires a tree removal permit, and if and also it's stating that in addition to the standard in lieu fee, if we feel the tree removed was a particularly high value tree, we are allowed to assess the value of the replacement value. This is a photo of the tree from Google Street View, because we did not have a photo before it was removed. It's a Pittosporum undulatum located on 17th Avenue, and it is, despite it being behind the sidewalk, it is still located in the public right-of-way. Here's just another photo of the tree showing its health. This is a right-of-way map showing that the right-of-way at this particular section is a 15-foot right-of-way, and the stump was 12 and a half feet from the curb, showing that it was a city-maintained street tree. This is a picture of the stump. The Bureau of Urban Forestry responded to a service request about an illegal tree removal. The inspector who responded then issued a fine and assessed the appraised value at $9,400. This is a copy of the appraisal sheet where the main driver of the appraisal is the diameter of the trunks. This particular tree had a 19-inch diameter, and then through the area where it says conditioned, then you start subtract the basic on diameter alone. The appraised value was $21,000, but then when you start taking in special conditions and limitations of the tree, then you start reducing the overall appraised value. So this tree had appraised at $9,400. Yeah, that is all. Thanks.
Thank you. May I please have the property owner provide their comments at this point?
I believe it's
Monica
Monica.
Lim.
You have Monica Lim, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
hey.
Did you want to share your screen?
Yes, I did. Thank
Okay,
you.
just one moment, please.
Sure.
And remember to unmute yourself as well, please.
All right. Let me just share my screen. I guess before I share my screen, I'll just provide some context. I'm representing my family on the 2696 17th Avenue property. They currently reside in China, so they've been quite removed from the property issues. However, they have entrusted our property agent to outsource the work to a gardener. We did not realize that we needed a city permit to review any trees that need to be removed or pruned, unfortunately, and are really apologetic about that and did not mean to harm any of the trees. Just wanted to state that our gardener discovered that the root of the tree was breaking the containing wall of the property and advised us that if it needed to be removed to prevent further damage to the structure of the containing wall, which is why we decided to remove it instead of trimming it. And the video that I'm sharing right now was also enclosed in the original appeal. It just shows the root roots impact to the containing wall.
Okay, definitely you suggest to remove it, right?
Yeah, otherwise, throw this, and you have to repaint that.
Yeah, the concrete, right?
The concrete.
Later on.
Yeah, it's still okay now, but if you leave in a few months more, gonna grow more and more and more.
So that was just a brief snippet, helping us see where the root of the tree was touching and that it did impact our containing wall. But we are very sorry for any illegal removal. My family would be happy to pay a retroactive removal fee of $832 if that's possible. We thank you for appealing or reviewing our appeal. Yeah, so I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you. Are there any public comments at this time? Seeing none, is there any rebuttals from the department?
I'll just state one thing that I think we forgot to, it was put in the hearing, but because the tree was removed, we will also be requiring a replacement tree to make up for the one that was lost.
Oh yes, we're more than happy to replant that replacement tree as well. We just were not aware that this tree was considered city property based on the guidance that we received, and because the root was impacting our the wall on our property, we thought it was solely our decision. So apologies for any misunderstanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to now close this item, move on to the next. Order number 205114 at 450 Las Palmas Drive. Steve, can you please start us off with this one?
Yes, this was one illegal tree removal at 450 Los Palmas Drive. Again, Section 806 states that in order to remove a protected street tree, you must be granted a tree removal permit. This is a picture of the palm tree in question. It's this tall one here that's fairly close to the building. This property owner did apply for a tree removal permit. This is a copy of what's called it's a tree removal notification, where if the city tentatively approves a permit, we post a removal notice for 30 days. And then that 30-day window is a protest window where the public can delay a tree removal permit or protest a tree removal permit and force a hearing. So that is what happened in this particular instance, that the public had protested the tree removal. And then this is just a copy of the application the property owner had submitted. I believe this is an email chain from one of our inspectors telling the applicant that there was a very high likelihood the tree would be protested, because at this time we were receiving a very high volume of protest from a very small select grouping of the public who decided to protest 90% of the trees we were trying to permit for removal. And then, so this is a little timeline. The application was received in April 2020. We did a 30-day removal notification from May to June 2020. And then in March of 2021, we notified the property owner that there would be a tree removal hearing. So there may have been a 10-month time period where the tree had been protested, but we did not notify the property owner that the tree actually had been protested. And then in that 10-month period, that's when they had removed the tree without having a permit in hand. Again, we'd like to stress, it's always the responsibility of the contractor or homeowner to have the actual permit in hand. But at the same time, the city may have failed to notify the applicant that the tree had actually been protested. Thanks.
Thank you. Follow-up question to that. So the property owner was under the impression that the tree removal was approved.
I mean, I don't know. They were never explicitly given a tree removal permit saying like you are approved to remove the tree. They needed, but at the same time, I don't think they were explicitly told it was protested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, both of the two people with their hands raised, one is I think the contractor and one is the property owner. So I don't know who they want to speak first.
Okay, so I will have the property owner provide their comment, and then the contractor can provide their comment as a member of the public. So at this time, may I have the property owner make its comment?
Yeah, that's Jessica and Jacob Driscoll.
Okay.
Hello, this is Jessica Driscoll. Thanks for your time. So I just wanted to clarify, yes, that timeline is correct. We filed for the permit back in May of 2020 through our certified arborist, Remy from Arborist Now, who is also on this call. And the 30 days notice was put up on the tree on May 20th. 30 days passed and we were not made aware of any protests. And on day 34, Remy's team at Arborist Now removed the tree. At no point were we made aware that we needed to have a paper permit in hand or that there had been any protests. We just thought, I think understandably, that everything was going smoothly. And then in March of 2021, 10 months later, we got notice of the hearing to approve the tree removal, which of course was shocking to us because it had been removed in June of 2020. And I think it is important to note that the city did recommend its removal. We have about 3 feet between the front of our house and the sidewalk, and the trunk of the tree was about 18 inches. It was about 6 inches from the house at the base. And up at the top, anytime there's wind, which there's a lot of wind up in Mariloma, it would slam into the house. So it was clearly a safety hazard for our home and needed to be removed. So once we got notice in March, we were shocked and, replied back saying, this tree was taken down back in June. What's going on? We were still required to go through the hearing process to get approval to remove the tree. So we went through that hearing. Whoever it was that protested was not present at that hearing, and the tree was recommended to be removed. Of course, the tree had already been removed. And now here we are. So we are kindly asking for the fee to be waived. For us, it feels like a 10-month window after we had applied is excessive, as it was deemed to be a hazard. And also because of the spacing, it was not even recommended that we replace the tree because it wouldn't be able to be planted a safe distance from the house. So thank you for your time, and please consider waiving this fee. Thanks.
Thank you. Now, may I have the public make their comments?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Remy Hummer, and I am the certified arborist and project manager for Arborist Now, who helped Jacob and Jessica Driscoll file the permit for removal and executed the removal. Everything that Jessica stated is true, as well as Stephen. And I do have the email from Susan, who, when corresponding about the removal of the tree, had, this is her email to me. She, quote, "We posted the tree 5/21 and the posting period will end 6/21." And that's actually a little off. It's 5/20 to 6/20. And then she continues to say, "There's a good chance there will be a protest, so stay tuned." And so I turned around and I had asked her, "What does that mean?" And she had said, "Well, there's a high volume of trees that are being protested." Okay, I said, "Oh, duly noted." And I turned around and also made Jacob and Jessica aware of that. After in my previous experiences, when we do issue a permit for removal, which I don't just do willy-nilly, it's always taking into consideration the tree itself. As an arborist, I'm ethically obligated to vouch for the management of a tree rather than just remove it. So I always take that very seriously and take that into consideration. So under these circumstances, we did apply to have the tree removed. due to all stated material before. And so as the days passed and the posting period expired, we were never notified once again of the protesting, which we still, I do have a couple questions. We have no idea. We were never, we still, for the record, are not aware of when the protest was actually received by Buff. And if the protest was received by Buff in a timely manner within that 30-day period, when was the posting attempted? Meaning, when would have the notice of the protest would have had to have been noted? We would have had to have been notified, and the public would have had to have been notified by putting a alternate notice on the tree within that 30 days. And if that is true, when, is there any record of that posting attempted? And I understand Marcus of the Bureau of Urban Forestry, I think, is responsible for that division. I could be wrong. But so once again, we have no notice of, or we have no idea when the protest was actually received within that 30 days. And I don't know if Stephen can tell us that. When was the posting of the protest attempted? And if you look into the Article 16-806-3A, it states that the Bureau of Urban Forestry is responsible within 7 days of the posting period to notify all parties involved, the applicant, myself, and the homeowners, as well as the public. And that never happened until 10 months later, in which we received an email that says, oh, the protest for 450 Los Palmos Drive is being protested, and then there is a hearing, much to the shock of myself and the homeowners, in which I immediately responded that the tree had been already removed. And then retroactively, it has been permitted for removal. And so here we are, and I am also asking for the fee to be waived, basically. And I know that also Stephen has made
that has been 3
statement.
minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like, just for the record, I did receive a letter from Susan, and also as Stephen had mentioned, about the responsibility for the director or the contractor to obtain a permit, but nowhere in the Article 16 does it actually state that. And from my previous experiences with Buff, they've never, I mean, there was a point at which we would receive the permit. However, that has never happened in many years at this point, in which have they ever given us a permit for any other removals. It was kind of the understanding that once the posting period expired, without any protest, it was free to remove the tree. And that's it.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Clip's hand is raised. Let me speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I'm pretty familiar with Article 16, and I'm not familiar with a provision within that article that requires the Bureau to inform an applicant regarding an objection within a specific amount of time, let alone that any failure to do that would result in the basically issuance of a default paperless permit to remove a street tree that's covered under Article 16. This is Arborist Now, which is a reputable firm in San Francisco. I'm pretty sure that they're familiar with the requirement that you need a permit to remove a statutorily protected tree. They also knew it was likely to be protested. If they weren't sure what the status was, they certainly could have circled back around and found out before they went ahead and cut it down. And certainly if it's only 4 days after the period expires, the objection time to object expires. I just also want to point out it was the same arborist company that just illegally cut down a street tree across the street from my house. So I'm just kind of curious if this is a pattern in practice or what's going on here. But it seems to me that this is a firm that knows better. There was plenty of information here. There's no legal requirement that the Bureau did anything wrong here. There's no such thing as a default permit. And because of all of the factors here, whether this was a tree that was going to be removed or not, there is a legal process that should have been followed, and consequences for not following that process should be applied. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clips. Does the department have any rebuttals?
Yeah, I'll just say, in regards to what is required to notify the public in terms of a protest, the thing that Remy was quoting was the whenever a tree is protested and then that triggers a tree hearing, whenever we announce the tree hearing date, we have to notify people within 7 days of the tree hearing. We don't actually have I don't think there's a required time in which to notify an applicant of when a tree was protested. We try our best to, whenever we receive a protest, to tell the applicant it was protested. However, at the time that this tree was protested, we were receiving 20 protests a week. And it was also right around the beginning of the pandemic. So we were all working from home, and it was a tough time. So I think the Bureau does admit fault in not immediately telling them it was protested, but there is no requirement for a timeline of when we must acknowledge a protest to the applicant.
Thank you. And I trust that the protests were received in a timely manner.
Yeah, we wouldn't have accepted the protest if it was outside that 30-day. And I can get a copy of the protest and look for it and date it after the hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any rebuttals from the property owner? Ms. Driscoll?
Yes, can you hear me? This is Jacob Driscoll. How are you?
Yep.
Yeah. So I understand what the representative was just speaking about, but at the same time, it sounds like it's a department issue, not our issue. We did everything compliantly and followed the instruction of Arborist Now, and who also has contracts with the city, has done many jobs with the city, and has followed the same procedure on every other job. So yes, COVID hit. Yes, there was a huge delay in that department's side to reach out to us, but that is not our responsibility. So again, we hired someone that's professional, that works with the city, works with many homeowners, has been in business for many, many years, highly reputable. And we did everything compliantly according to these articles. And if the articles seem vague, then that seems like something that department needs to update on their side to be more clear. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That concludes.
Could we?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can we also be made aware of the protest and see when that was submitted and who submitted it?
I think the department can make that available, but I think it'll any contact information will have to be redacted.
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
But we could see the.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
But the thing is, even if it came in within that 30-day window, your department failed to notify us. So whether it did, I mean, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's most important that the department that we are basically involved with you didn't notify us in the window that you should have notified us. That's it.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes all the comments. And I will close that item and move on to the next. Also, I forgot to mention this. All the previous items, you will be notified of the decision by email. So order number 205115 at 601 44th Avenue. Steve, can you take this off for us?
Okay. Hello, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. This fine is for the illegal removal of one tree at 601 44th Avenue. This is a picture of on the left is a picture of the tree. It was I believe a holly oak. The before picture was from Google Street View. One of our inspectors likely got a service request about an illegal tree removal. And then on the right is just a picture of the stump. Yeah, so the homeowner was assessed the basic in lieu fee of $21.93. I read the appeal from the property owner, and they stated the reason they removed the tree was due to storm damage and a storm failure, and they thought it was hazardous. So I will, if the homeowner is here, I will let them speak to that more. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the property owner provide comments on this item, please? Ms. Arena?
Yes, this is Irina Folkert, and unfortunately it was damaged by the storm, and the neighbor was walking the dog and asked me to move the tree. So she helped me out. We moved the tree aside. The thing is, we did not remove it. Actually, we submitted more pictures that the tree is growing back. Thanks God, because we have been trying to protect it, and hopefully we'll have it has been grown for almost 3 feet right now, and looks pretty green. Originally it was damaged. We submitted picture of our tree stump, and also my neighbor, which is the same oak tree. Hers is completely eaten up by bugs. The only reason it's still standing because she has that like little fence around it, and that's why it didn't fall. Ours, with the storm, we lost the palm tree next to it, and this one was also cracked and leaning towards the sidewalk. So it's not really, anything we could do with it. My understanding that those oak trees are very vulnerable. The urban forester just planted magnolias for us, which look pretty good. Hopefully they will be, lasting longer. This one, as I said, is sprouted. It's already about 3 feet above the stump growing, but I'm not sure if it will be start, what to do with those bugs.
So I have a question for you. Did the tree break off at the trunk at the bottom?
The tree broke off at the bottom. It was probably, maybe about 2 feet of the bottom. Yes.
Do you possibly have any pictures of that?
Unfortunately, we did not make a picture of it. It was pretty, bad morning. It was bad storm about almost 2 years ago. I didn't even think about making a picture of it. You know, I was more in a rush to remove it because it's very busy sidewalk. People are running to the park. There's like a Sutro Park next to us. A lot of runners, people with the dogs. I just didn't want anybody to complain that the trees across the walkway.
So subsequently, you removed the tree and then you cut the trunk down a little bit.
Just a little bit to trim, so it's not going to be, you know, like uneven because it cracked about 2 feet off the ground. So we didn't remove a tree. It's Mother Nature that removed it. And as I said, there was a palm tree right next to it. That one came off the ground together with the roots. So there was no way we can save that one, obviously. But that palm tree, we just moved it to the driving area, and I think the Sunset Scavengers probably removed it in one of the cleaning days of the street cleaning.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would love to plant something on that space now from the palm tree, but this tree that we're talking about, that we were cited, it's actually growing back, and I'm trying to, put as much nourishment as I can. It just don't know what to do to protect it from the bugs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the public at this time? Okay. Does the department have any rebuttals?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will close this item. And you will receive the decision by email. The last item will be order number 205116 at 955 Kirkham Street. Steve, will you start us off on this last item, please?
Yes, hello, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. As Jean said, this is a fine for the illegal pruning of 3 street trees, and then also 1 significant tree, a significant tree being it's on private property, but within 10 feet of the sidewalk or public right of way. This is a photo of the property before the pruning had occurred. There's 3 blackwood acacias in the sidewalk, and then 1 redwood tree within the yard in the upper left-hand corner. Here are after photos of the blackwood acacia trees after they were pruned. There's a pretty significant excessive pruning. Maybe 80% of the canopy was removed, and topping cuts or heading cuts were made to a majority of the scaffold branches. Just showing some close-up photos. Again, kind of showing the scaffold branches were kind of just lopped off at random points with not much thought into leaving canopy, and also creating very large wounds that could decay in the future. I guess one more thing, this is a species of tree that once you do excessively prune it, they do tend to decay relatively quickly. It's just a characteristic. So it's one of those trees that it's particularly bad when this species of tree is topped, but it unfortunately is a fairly common practice. I guess this photo is for context. This is a Google photo from 2013, showing that the property owner had pruned these trees in a similar fashion in the past. And once you do prune a blackwood acacia like this, it tends to significantly resprout very, very quickly. But at the same time, it can create columns of decay in the tree. So it is important, once you top these trees once, that you do have to do some type of canopy containment over time. because the large sprouts will become, hazardous in the future. But it's just this time around, they did excessively prune the trees again, so we issued a fine. This is a photo of the property showing the location of the redwood tree and how it was within 10 feet of the public right-of-way. So even though a tree is on private property, Public Works still has jurisdiction to issue fines and removal permits for large trees. This is a before picture of the redwood tree in the backyard. And this is the after picture. And after more thoroughly reviewing the pictures of the redwood tree, the Bureau is recommending that the fine for the pruning of the redwood tree be reduced. The redwood tree has some very questionable structure where you can maybe see in this area that it may have broken in the past, and there is several tops. So it seems like the homeowner in regards to the redwood tree was doing a fairly reasonable canopy reduction and crown containment just in regular pruning. So we would suggest that portion of the fine be waived. Thanks, that is all.
Thank you. What portion would that be?
So
The amount be?
it's the fine was just 4. Let me double check. The fine was 4 in lieu fees. So it's just if you divide 8722, divide that by 4.
Okay.
And so does that make sense? It was just
Yes.
4 in lieu fees. So you would
Okay.
take 1 in lieu fee off the top. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Just a quick clarification with Prop E passing a few years ago. That's only for street trees, correct?
Yes.
Not for and significant trees inside property lines will not be.
Correct. With the Public Works would never maintain the
Correct.
significant trees.
Correct. Okay, thank you. May I have the property owner provide any comments to this item at this point? Is there any property owner?
Yeah, Carla.
Carla?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, this property, my father planted all of the, everything in the mid-1950s. He planted all the trees, the vegetation, the acacia on the sidewalk. We've been pruning the acacias for many decades now. And they are very vigorous. They're considered a invasive plant or tree. Weed. They're considered an invasive weed. It has been, I have actually wanted to remove them as a street tree over the years. They keep coming back. They keep getting, we have had our phone service and internet service and so forth disrupted. Because of this. So I had contacted Bartlett, I had contacted Davy, and I said, I want more than 30% removed because they just get crazy within 2 years. And they wouldn't do it. So I found an arborist it was in East Palo Alto. And I said, these are exactly how I want these trees pruned. I grew up these trees. They were planted before I was born. And they are grown back beautifully. They're already very full, and within a year from now they will need to be trimmed again because they keep going into the power lines. Let's show them the pictures from yesterday. So you have the photos that I took that I sent you in yesterday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So they have already they're already they're very full and lush. Again, these trees are almost 70 years old. Now the redwood, it has a lot of damage because from the western winds. So the west side of the tree is kind of burnt and it doesn't look very good. It leans into the neighbor's property. The neighbor was upset that it was leaning into the property and so forth. And he wanted me to trim anything because of, you know, surveillance cameras and so forth. So that is what, you know, I have a great deal of experience in gardening. I was a 3417 gardener for the city. I worked with Friends of the Urban Forest. I helped plant street trees and help the public to educate them about the proper maintenance of the street trees. These, however, have been very, I spoke to a firefighter who said that you should prune these because they are going to get tangled up in the power lines and so forth. So I did have them pruned according to CPUC and PG&E guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public at this time? Okay. Does the department have any rebuttals? Okay. Steve, are you still there? Am I still here?
Yes,
Okay.
you're still here, but I think he froze.
Okay. Actually, I have a question for Carla.
Okay, let me give her permission to talk. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Carla, do you see any decay on the acacias?
On one branch, just one branch only.
Okay. In your experience, is that something that can be treated?
That branch will have to go. As a matter of fact, the arborist that I hired, he said that he only cut back to the dead branches and back to previous cuts where there was decay. And as you can see, they're growing back beautifully. So they always do. They're very tenacious plants, or tree.
Okay. And may I ask why the two initial arborists that you reached out to declined your request to?
Well, it would have been
trim?
nice. I was not aware of the DPWs, but I didn't even realize we've been pruning these trees since the 1950s. We didn't realize there was a permit needed. There's never been an issue. They're very old. They're almost 70 years old. And they have a tendency to just get, I don't know, they've got their roots in the sewer, and so they're just going nuts with the foliage and so forth. So I just had them do it. I said, this is a concern because of, you know, the power lines running through them and so forth. So please just prune it back to where it's safe. I thought they did a beautiful job because I know these trees. Like I say, before I was born, and they just get very flush very, very quickly. This has been for, you know, 65 to 70 years now.
So the two initial arborists declined because of permitting issues?
They didn't tell me. They were very expensive. Bartlett was, $8,000.
Okay.
So I interviewed other tree agencies, and I said, I don't want to go with a 30% rule. I know that I'm an experienced gardener. I know these things, and the 30% rule would take off. You wouldn't even be able to notice it. They get so massive so quickly. Unfortunately, the redwood, the sequoia, 30 or 40 years ago, it was topped. And that was very unhealthy for it. It's the worst place in the world for Sequoia sempervirens. So it's been a challenge to try and keep it healthy over these many decades. And it gets massive. The neighbors were complaining. It was leaning into their property. So I said, just take out all that mass that's on the eastern side of the tree.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Steve, you're back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. Did you have anything to add in terms of rebuttal?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, the way I heard the owner say, like, she had contacted previous arborists and had asked them to prune the acacias in a certain way, and perhaps they had refused because, you know, they were asking for an amount of pruning that was against like arboricultural standards, right? I would hope that, in the future that the homeowner knows like they cannot prune the trees to this degree because they will get fined again. Again, because of the manner they've been trimmed in the past, like we understand that if they want to do supplemental pruning that reduces the canopy to some degree, that's okay. But making large 3-inch and 4-inch cuts on a tree is not acceptable. Despite these trees needing more significant maintenance now because of past pruning, what people fail to realize is when one person tops their trees like this, then it sometimes creates a cascading effect down the block where someone else sees like, oh, like I want my tree topped, I think my tree is too big. And then the next thing you know, you have a bunch of trees that are topped that may not tolerate it as well as some species, and you end up killing some really nice trees. So again, I didn't necessarily hear it from the homeowner that they understood they cannot prune the trees in this fashion. But I hope that is a lesson they've learned. Thanks.
So Steve, I have a follow-up question. With acacias being sort of an invasive species, does the department have some sort of a tighter pruning schedule for these types of trees, or is it?
No, it's just a species we don't plant anymore. They were very popular maybe 40 years ago, but due to a number of reasons, they don't tolerate root pruning very well. So whenever you do a sidewalk repair, the roots rot and the trees fall over. They also tend to decay very quickly when you prune them incorrectly. So it's just been a species of tree that we just no longer plant. But most of our maintenance is still it's just all grid and block based. We're not necessarily pruning this species of tree any more than others.
Okay. All right, thank you. Since I asked the department for rebuttals, Carla, do you have any rebuttals to what the department just presented?
Hi, yes. I'd just like to say that I am a very experienced and educated horticulturalist. I knew exactly what I was doing. The sequoia in the backyard has been very, very difficult to maintain because of the western winds, and it was unfortunately topped about 40 years ago. So you have all those shoots coming up for those branches and so forth. So that's been a huge struggle to maintain. And again, pleasing the neighbors, especially our neighbors to the east, where it leans into their tree and all kinds of leaf falls. So I just instructed the tree pruners to really make that side light. Now, the acacia on the sidewalk, again, over 65 years old, constantly very, very, very aggressive. So this particular time, I just wanted, I found an arborist who, he wasn't familiar with service. He was from East Palo Alto. I'm not familiar with the San Francisco permitting system. And I was not either until now. I just wasn't aware of it. So he did exactly what I wanted. I said, I want them pollarded. I want them taken back. They're going to come back, and they have come back. So that's all I can say. It was not an ignorant decision on my part at all. I wanted this done because they just are very invasive, and they get out of control within a very short period of time. So from now on, now that I am aware of this, I will definitely do the 30 practices of better pollarding. I think the mistake I made was to wait too long and then get them pruned more excessively, but now they need to be done every 2 years and just lightly pruned every 2 years. And I will do that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I will close this item. Again, the decision will come by email. And that concludes our hearing. Everyone have a good day.
Okay. Thanks, Gene. Thanks,
Thank you.
Reese. Nice meeting everyone.